The sermon today is titled, By Faith, Moses. It's based on Hebrews 11, 24 to 27. So if you would, turn in your Bibles, the passage, and let's begin. The faith of the parents. A child's faith often begins with the faith of the parents. The parents of Moses, according to Hebrews 11:23, acted by faith. Hebrews chapter 11 describes men and women of faith. In verse 23, by faith, Moses, when he was born, was hidden 3 months by his parents because they saw he was a beautiful child, and they were not afraid of the king's command. Moses was brought up at home by his parents for 3 months, but finally set out. He was nursed by his mother till he grew, and later he was brought up by Pharaoh's daughter. And so for some period of time, we see until Pharaoh's daughter brought him up as her own, that Moses' parents, his mother and father, raised him, provided for him. Exodus 2, 8 to 10. Also in the New Testament in Acts 7, 20 to 22. We also see the faith of the Son, and that's what we will be speaking on today. The writer of the Epistle of Hebrews gives 3 examples of the faith of Moses. By faith, Moses refused, forsook, and kept. We'll be focusing on the first 2 of the 3. By faith, Moses refused, verses 24 to 26, and by faith Moses forsook, verse 27. Verse 28, by faith Moses kept the Passover. We'll speak on the first 2 of those 3 today, particularly concerning his faith when he grew up. Hebrews 11, 24 to 27. By faith Moses, when he became of age, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt, for he looked for the reward, to the reward. By faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. And so Moses followed in the footsteps of his parents in walking by faith. One of the lessons that we can learn today as Christians is to set good examples for our children to follow. First, by faith, Moses refused, verses 24 to 26. Verse 24, by faith, Moses. According to the writer of Hebrews, Moses acted by faith. He did not act impulsively. He did not act out of ignorance. He acted by faith. Oh, that more people today would act by faith. Hear the word of God and obey. Verse 24, it says, when he became of age. And so this is the time when Moses had grown up. It's time to put into practice some of the lessons that he had been taught during his youth. This is the time when Moses had grown up, according to Exodus 2:11, and in Acts 7 and 23. According to Luke, he was at the age of 40 years old. Verse 24 says that he refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. By faith, Moses refused. Moses was born a Hebrew, but was brought up by Pharaoh's daughter as her own son. Moses had a decision to make. Would he continue to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter while remaining in the Egyptian royal family? Or would Moses be known with the people of God? He could not do both. What would he do? Moses' choice was deliberate. He did not make the choice hastily. He carefully considered the consequences of his choice. We ought to make more deliberate choices today. By faith, Moses refused to be called or to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He would serve God. The Egyptians were not serving God, certainly not the Pharaoh, the king of the Egyptians, who ordered so much suffering against the Hebrews. And the Hebrews, who were faithful to God as the people of God, served him. What would Moses choose? Moses chose to refuse. Sometimes saying no is the hardest thing. More people need to learn to say no. But God, we see that he would serve God. Exodus 2:11-15, Acts 7:23-29. The writer continues in verse 25 saying, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin. And refusing to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, Moses chose to suffer affliction. It's not as though Moses wanted to suffer affliction. However, he made a choice, and with his choice were consequences. Oftentimes doing the right thing is often the harder thing to do. His choice meant that he would suffer or endure ill treatment at the hands of the Egyptians. Moses, who was brought up the son of Pharaoh's daughter, would be mistreated by the Egyptians as a Hebrew. With the choice of Moses, he not only assigned himself to suffer affliction, he gave up all the benefits of being the son of Pharaoh's daughter. There are not only the privileges of being an Egyptian, but being in the royal household of Pharaoh, the son of Pharaoh's daughter. And so the writer described these benefits as the passing pleasures of sin. We know that the pleasures of sin are often passing. They are temporary and brief. They do not last. Moses understood that he would either serve God or he would not serve God. Reminds me of Jesus' teaching on you cannot serve God and mammon or riches. What would he choose? And of course, today, what do we choose as Christians? Will we serve God or will we not serve God? To choose the easier path apart from affliction would be to enjoy the things of the Egyptians. However, the harder path was the right path, but it also came with affliction. The way that was contrary to the will of God was the way of sin. Moses also knew that the pleasures of these things were passing or fleeting. They were transitory and would pass quickly. Sometimes we ask, is something worth it? Sin is not worth it. Let's look briefly at how the Hebrews suffered affliction. The king of Egypt dealt shrewdly with the people of the children of Israel. Pharaoh and the Egyptians, according to Exodus 1:11, set taskmasters over them to afflict them with their burdens. You see, the king of Egypt, Pharaoh, was afraid that the Hebrews would increase in population to the point that they may overpower them or may join their enemies and overpower them. So he feared them and their growth. So one of the things he done in dealing shrewdly with them was setting these taskmasters over them to afflict them with their burdens. He made them build cities. He made them build for Egypt. And when that wasn't enough, they continued to thrive. They continued to grow in number. The Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor or harshness. Exodus 1:13, and made their lives bitter with hard bondage. And so the Hebrews served as slaves to the Egyptians, to Pharaoh, to the king of Egypt. You see, this affliction occurred with the passing of Joseph and with the coming of a new king who did not know Joseph, according to the record. What freedoms they enjoyed were now gone with this new king who did not know Joseph. And so he put these men over them to make them work, make them serve with a rigor. And so the king of Egypt, he further told the Hebrew midwives to kill the sons who were born to the Hebrew women. Exodus 1:15-16. But thankfully, the midwives feared God more than they feared the king and did not do as commanded by the king of Egypt. Exodus 1:17. The Pharaoh commanded all his people, to cast every son who was born into the river Nile. Exodus 1:22. And what an atrocity, or the killing of these children who were born, thrown into the river. The setting out and ultimately the exposure of these children. When Moses was grown, he saw firsthand how his brethren labored under the burdens, and he witnessed how an Egyptian beat a Hebrew in Exodus 2:11. We should note how Moses, according to the text, went out to his brethren and how he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his brethren. Exodus 2:11. And so the writer of the book, Moses, wrote concerning this and how that he was a Hebrew. They were his brethren, even though he was raised by this Egyptian woman, by Pharaoh's daughter. You remember when they found Moses, baby Moses, in the ark of bulrushes. We see how that she understood that he was a Hebrew boy. Despite the ill treatment of the Hebrews by the Egyptians, Moses, who was born a Hebrew, made the decision to be known with the people of God. He would serve God. That was no light decision. Being born a Hebrew did not mean that Moses would faithfully serve God. It took more than ancestry. Not all the Hebrews were faithful to God. Moses found that out. Moses chose, however, to serve God. Verse 26, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt. The writer of Hebrews writes concerning the reproach of Christ. The people of God who believed the promise of God acted by faith while suffering reproach. Moses esteemed or considered the reproach suffered by the people of God as being greater riches than the treasures in Egypt. When one thinks of the vast riches of the Egyptians and how Moses considered the reproach suffered by the people of God greater than the riches of the treasures of Egypt, one is certainly impressed with the faith of Moses. You see the reproach of Christ. The people of God have always suffered reproach the people that God has raised up. We think of people like Joseph, whom God raised, and later on with Stephen in the New Testament, how that God raised him up, how the people were stiff-necked and would not listen. Ultimately, how that God raised up Jesus, the Christ, and he rejected him too. Moses was willing to suffer reproach with the people of God. Moses, as well as other people of God, have suffered reproach in serving God. Christians today suffer reproach or disgrace for the sake of Christ, who came according to the promise of God. In Hebrews 11:26, it says, "For he looked to the reward." Why did Moses consider, quote, the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt? Moses looked to the reward. He kept looking for the heavenly reward. We see in Hebrews the joy of the heavenly country. For example, in the previous chapter, Hebrews 10:32-35, the writer writes these words by inspiration. "But recall the former days in which, after you were illuminated, you endured a great struggle with sufferings, partly while you were made a spectacle, both by reproaches and tribulations, and partly while you became companions of those who were so treated. For you had compassion on me in my chains, and joyfully accepted the plundering of your goods, knowing that you have a better and enduring possession for yourselves in heaven. Therefore, do not cast away your confidence, which has great reward." And so Hebrews 10:34, he said, knowing that you have a better and an enduring possession for yourselves in heaven. He talks about the plundering of their goods. Well, these goods did not match up to the enduring possession that they had for themselves in heaven. So he's writing to these Christians in this letter to the Hebrews. Do not cast away your confidence, your faith, which has great reward. Jesus said, lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, not treasures on earth, or moth and rust corrupt, or where thieves break in and steal. He said, lay up yourselves treasures in heaven. And so do not cast away your confidence, your faith, which has great reward. Again, in this same chapter, earlier in Hebrews 11:4-16, he gives these examples of faith in order to encourage the brethren of his day. And he gives some examples from the past. Hebrews 11:13-16, he said, these all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, were assured of them, embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. For those who say such things declare plainly that they seek a homeland. And truly, if they had called to mind that country from which they had come out, they would have had opportunity to return. But now they desire a better, that is, a heavenly country. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. So he lists various people of faith and how they died in faith and how they sought a homeland, and how he describes that homeland as a better, a heavenly country. And so we remember that Moses looked to the reward. He looked to something which was not visible, to the invisible God, to the invisible reward. What about application for us today as Christians? Think about how Paul, the apostle, was willing to suffer reproach for the sake of Christ. 2 Corinthians 4:16-18, he said, "Therefore we do not lose heart, even though our outward man is perishing, yet the inward man is being renewed day by day. For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, is working for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. While we do not look at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal." Again, Moses looked to the reward. And so this reward for the people of God is one which is eternal, not temporary. Not the things that are seen, the things which are not seen. He said, in describing their affliction, our light affliction, and think about how only Paul could speak that way with credibility, given how much he suffered. And he called it our light affliction, which is but for a moment, it's temporary, is working for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. And so in comparison to the weight of that, it is nothing in comparison to the eternal weight of glory. And so they're looking to things which are eternal, that heavenly homeland, that heavenly city. Paul taught in Colossians 3:1-3 to set your mind on heaven. He said, if you were raised with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ is sitting at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not on things on the earth. For you died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. I think about those passing pleasures of sin mentioned by the Hebrew writer in Hebrews 11. And then I think about the reward that Moses looked to, which was not passing, which was enduring, lasting. As Christians today, we look to the everlasting reward, eternal life in heaven. A lesson that we learn from the next chapter of Hebrews, Hebrews 12:1-3, following the lessons of those men and women of faith, keep your eye on Jesus. Therefore, we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking on to Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him who endured such hostility from sinners against himself, lest you become weary and discouraged in your souls. The next time that you feel discouraged, look to Jesus. Second, by faith, Moses forsook. Hebrews 11:27. So this goes along with what we've studied in the first point today. It says, by faith, he forsook Egypt. It was by faith that Moses forsook Egypt. Moses did not simply leave Egypt. He forsook Egypt, turning away entirely. He would later return to Egypt, according to the will of God, to deliver his people, the Hebrews. Not fearing the wrath of the king. The writer of Hebrews makes the point that Moses did not fear the wrath of the king concerning his decision to forsake Egypt and to serve God. It was said of Moses, or it was said of the parents of Moses in Hebrews 11:23, they were not afraid of the king's command. And so we see the faith of the parents of Moses, but we also see the faith of Moses here in verse 27. The more faith we have, it seems, the less fear we have. Of course, people experience fear, but do people allow fear to keep us from doing the will of God, from serving him? And so through faith, we can have the strength to overcome and to persevere, to endure. Was Moses afraid? Well, after Moses killed the Egyptian, he feared personally for his life. His life was in danger. At some times in places, fear can be a beneficial thing if it keeps us from danger. Of course, fear can be detrimental if it keeps us from following God. Being afraid to confess his name and are afraid to follow him. When Pharaoh heard of what Moses did, he sought to kill Moses, according to Acts 2:14-15. However, Moses had no fear concerning his choice to serve God rather than Pharaoh. I think about the danger of the midwives. They were told to kill the sons, keep the daughters alive, but they did not obey. I wonder about their fear. But we see that they overcame and they acted by faith. We see that Moses' parents, they knew the order to throw out their sons, to expose their sons. But they trusted in God and they had a plan. There was a plan, and they set out their son and at the place best where Pharaoh's daughter would find him. She took him in. According to the suggestion of Miriam, sister of Moses, turned Moses over to his own mother, which Pharaoh's daughter did not know. And Moses' mother had the opportunity to nurse her child for however long. Later on, Moses was raised by Pharaoh's daughter as her own. But finally refused to be called Pharaoh's daughter, the son of Pharaoh's daughter, and forsook Egypt. Moses feared God rather than the king. Yes, there was some fear for his own personal safety, but he did not fear in serving God. Hebrews 11:27, it says, "For he endured as seeing him who is invisible." You might ask, how does one see what is invisible? One sees the invisible God through the eye of faith. Moses forsook Egypt by faith, not fearing the wrath of the king. His life was in danger. However, he did not allow fear to keep him from serving God. Finally, to return to deliver the people. He refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, and he forsook Egypt. And when he returned, he did not return as an Egyptian. He did not return as son of Pharaoh's daughter. He returned as a Hebrew. He returned as a man who feared God and served him, the people of God. We see that Moses endured affliction and reproach through his strong faith in the invisible God. He saw God by faith. What application might we make of this today? As Christians today, we should learn from the faith of Moses. We too can gain the strength to endure through faith in the invisible God. Paul mentions the invisible God in a number of passages. His letters to Timothy and the Colossians and the Romans, 1 Timothy 6:15-16, Colossians 1:17, Timothy 1:17, Colossians 1:15, Romans 1:20. By seeing God through the eyes of faith, we too can endure. We can overcome fear and faithfully serve God. If you are not a Christian, consider why you are not a Christian. Do you believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God? If you believe, confess your faith in him, much as the Ethiopian did in Acts chapter 8. If you believe, and because of your faith in him, you confess Christ, repent of your sins. Change your heart. Turn from your sin to God. Be baptized for remission of your sins, Acts 2:38. Remember what Jesus said, Mark 16:16, he who believes and is baptized shall be saved. And so be baptized. If you are a Christian, but you've been unfaithful. Repent of your sins and go to God in prayer. Pray God that he will forgive you. This lesson today, I hope that it has been helpful, that you can learn from the faith of Moses. Thank you for being here today.